Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. For those of you who are with us this far, we will just wait a few more seconds to let other people hop on in case people are keep coming in. So just hang tight and we'll get the session started shortly. Thank you. All right, we will go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is titled Late Night Alcohol-Free Programming, an Insight into Successful Social Change. My name is Emma, and I'll be your moderator for today. I am the Assistant Director for the Illinois Higher Education Center for Alcohol, Other Drug, and Violence Prevention, sometimes known as IHEC, which is less of a mouthful. I'm very excited to be hosting today's event. Before I hand over the microphone, I have a few housekeeping items to cover about today's webinar and the GoToWebinar platform itself. If any of you are new to using GoToWebinar, you'll see on the right of your screen a control panel. This is where you'll find a question box. Within the little question section, the question box, you will be able to use that to type in any questions that you may have about today's session. All attendees will be muted throughout today's program, but that doesn't mean that you still can't participate. This is where that question box comes in. We would love for you to type in anything. If you have questions for the presenters, you can type them in there and we'll get to them at the end of the session. I would like to also tell you all that the webinar is being recorded. We like to do that in case there's anyone maybe on your campuses that after today you realize that they could really benefit from listening to it. We would love to be able to share that with them as well. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you today's speakers from Lehigh University. We have Anastasia, who's a graduate assistant in Health Advancement and Prevention Strategies, Nick, who's the Assistant Director of the Office of Student Engagement, Meg, Data Analysis, Office of Institutional Research and Strategic Analytics, and Jenna, the Director of Health Advancement and Prevention Strategies. So welcome to today's webinar, and I'm going to hand it over now.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Hello, my name is Jenna Papaz. I serve as the Director of Health Advancement and Prevention Strategies, also a mouthful, and I also serve as the coordinator for Lehigh After Dark. First, we want to thank you for joining us today at our presentation. The presentation you're about to see and hear is about how our late night programming called Lehigh After Dark, which we will commonly refer to as LAD, has emerged to ignite successful social change on our campus. We hope you're able to take some of the learnings from our homegrown prevention strategy and apply it to your work in higher ed. So before we begin the presentation, I just want to give you an overview of what you can expect from today's session. We will talk about why Lehigh's demographics are important to understand as it relates to high-risk drinking and the emergence of Lehigh After Dark. We'll talk about the evolving organizational structure and the strategic members who dedicate their time to Lehigh After Dark. We'll also talk about our interconnected programming model and why we use it, the assessment process and methodology on how we collect data, our program goals and how we track them to guide our decision making, and finally, the future trajectory of LAD. All right, so a little bit more about Lehigh for those of you who are unfamiliar with our campus. We are a small private university located in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is roughly an hour and a half from New York and Philly. About 5,000 of our students are undergraduates and 2,000 of our students make up our graduate population. Of these, roughly 63% come from the tri-state area, which is comprised of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. 65% of our students identify as white. Now, Lehigh prides itself on having very strong academics. There are 4 colleges: College of Arts and Sciences, Business and Economics, College of Ed, and Engineering and Applied Sciences. Due to our strong engineering school, we typically see a consistent 55 to 45 male to female ratio, which is pretty atypical to be male dominant in higher ed right now. Our students tend to be very involved and rigorous both inside and outside the classroom. About 40% of our students are involved in Greek life and 30% play a sport, and we are Division I. 96% are involved in extracurricular activities. So the reason that I decided to share this data with you is to demonstrate that our students hit many of the characteristics of high-risk drinkers. We are a small private university with strong athletics, a Greek presence. We're predominantly male and white and located in the Northeast. Up until the 1970s, Lehigh was an all-male campus who historically have been bigger drinkers. We know our students have a work hard, play hard mentality here, so drinking is very much deeply ingrained in the culture. Before we dive into some of the other aspects of Lehigh After Dark, I wanted to take a minute to provide some context about how Lehigh After Dark got started. Oops, sorry. Back in 2011, Lehigh was asked to join NCHIP, which is the National College Health Improvement Project. NCHIP's mission was to reduce the severity and prevalence of high-risk drinking on college campuses. Alongside NCHIP, Lehigh was also looking at data from Alcohol EDU. For those of you who are unaware, Alcohol EDU is a survey given to all first-year students assessing their current drinking exposures and behaviors. Our completion rate is nearly 99%. From this, we saw a trend emerging. Students were starting to seek out more alcohol-free social options as they were entering Lehigh, which is a great thing. Lehigh was one initiative that emerged as a result of both NCHIP and the results of the Alcohol EDU survey. Lehigh After Dark is focused on the development and implementation of late night offerings of social and recreational options on Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays that do not include alcohol. Essentially, staff saw this as a way to empower students to come up with fun, social, cultural, intellectual events that did not include alcohol, and LAD would be the funding source to bring it to life. This initiative had campus-wide buy-in and was recognized as a prevention strategy. Now, 4 years later, LAD is an award-winning, nationally recognized program. One thing we constantly revisit as a team is the mission of LAD to be sure it is still relevant. The days of the week and times are deliberate. We know based on the data this time period has historically seen higher drinking rates and a high number of transports to local emergency rooms. Periodically, we have challenged parts of our mission, but we've always referred back to the data before making any changes. What we realized needed to change on a more regular basis was the infrastructure of the program, which sometimes could lack consistency and specific roles. We knew that in order to build a successful team, we needed to collaborate strategically with multidisciplinary partners. So next steps included building a solid team and plugging the right people and skills into those roles. It was important we develop an org chart outlining a comprehensive and organized approach to staffing LAD. Keep in mind all staff that work on LAD have either a personal or professional tie to the health and safety of our students. This allows us to set unofficial position descriptions where everyone understood their individual role. You'll see from the bulleted list, our partners transcend student affairs, and although some of these partners are not involved in necessarily the nitty-gritty day-to-day work, they still serve a very valuable role in the bigger picture. Next, I'm going to hand it off to Nick, who's going to talk a little bit more about our planning model and why we've seen success with it.
Thanks, Jenna. So our programming model is set up so we're providing high quality events through the Lehigh After Dark program by also getting student buy-in as we do it. So as Jenna had mentioned previously, we do have an interconnected programming model. So what does that mean? Essentially, it means that we have a combination of professional staff, committee planned events, as well as our ambassador planned events, which we identify as signature events. We have student planned events, so events that are planned specifically by students and student organizations. And we also have recurring events, so those events that happen regularly throughout the semester. All operate on different levels of planning, of funding, and all come together to create our interconnected programming model. Together, they allow us to have an event plan for almost every Thursday, Friday, Saturday of the semester. So starting off with our student planned events. So again, as I mentioned, there's student or student org planned events that we provide funding or assistance to. The process starts when students identify that they're planning an event within their organization, and they reach out via a Google form that is available on our website that captures some of the basic information just to give us a brief overview of what the event entails. On that Google form application, we include things like their contact information, any co-sponsors, either offices, departments, or even other organizations, event name and description of what they plan to do, date, location, and time. We also go as far as to ask for the reservation confirmation. We want to make sure that they're serious about planning the event before we actually decide on funding. We also ask them if there's a cost to attend, and if the money is directly directed towards a philanthropy of any kind, and projected attendance. So we want to know how many students they expect, so we can kind of put a price per student cost analysis together, and also the main point there, the amount requested. On average, we give our student groups that are planning LAD events around $500 per event. That varies based on the event size and scope, but that generally is what we do. We also require the students during the application submit a budget of fund or projected costs for the event, including things like sound, reservation fees if those are in place, transportation, and food, of course. After the application is submitted, if the event is quite in-depth, we meet one-on-one as LAD committee members with the student groups to go over planning and ensure that the event is solid and of quality, which is very important to our brand. From there, we sign off and we have the event checklist, which you'll see above on your screen. And through this, we require them to do a few things. First of all, we require them to reach out to university announcements, which is an email that goes out every night for students to see what's going on throughout the university. We have them promote the event through social media and also use our social media and hashtag. We ask that they provide photos so we can use them in the future, and in some cases we actually send student photographers to the event so we can get some photos for promotion. And then the main piece too here is getting swipe data. We require all of our events to have swipe data, so students use their student IDs and swipe. That provides their student identification number, and from that information we're able to do assessment on who's at our events, and even more assessment into that. They also have to submit that event attendance sheet to us before we release the funds that they have been granted. Our recurring weekly programs are programs that are put on by our Lehigh After Dark committee, professional committee, with some help from student, staff, and employees. Two of our biggest recurring programs are Thursday Night Trivia, which happens every Thursday night, in one of our late night eateries on campus, and Wingo, which happens usually one Saturday per month, which Wingo is a combination of wings and bingo, excuse me. Both give out a variety of different prizes, including milkshakes, small items from Five Below, and also Lehigh swag, which is incredibly popular. The benefit of having weekly recurring programs is we gather a following. We have students that are committed to attending these events every time that they occur and are excited. And so it's really a great opportunity. The events are usually also co-sponsored by student organizations, so we can get the buy-in, and also in turn they can get the marketing as well. So for example, one of our last Wingos, we had our Cultural Greek Council sponsor it following a yard show they did in the space that we hold Wingo, which allowed for over 120 participants, which was, I think, one of our best yet. Another example for trivia is we have the Star Wars Club, who hosted Star Wars trivia to an amazing crowd. So really utilizing our students to kind of have them create the buy-in, not only within their group, but others as well. Our average trivia attendance is usually between 30 and 70, I would say. In Wingo, we usually see around 80 to 120 for each time that we do it. Finally, we have our signature events. And these are events that we have created to grow the Lehigh After Dark brand. They are always planned and also advertised on a larger scale than some of our other events. And they are usually planned by Lehigh After Dark pro staff committee or our student ambassadors, which I'll speak to in just a moment. They require sometimes semester-long planning. There's more risk, they have a higher budget, and we need more volunteers to make them effective. We also tend to bring in multiple campus partners, including other offices within our division, sometimes dining, our LUPD, public safety, and many others, both in the volunteer role and also an advisory role to make sure that our events are successful. Some examples of these signature events that we've had in the past, we've had our bonfire, which you can see a picture of, which is enormous. We've also done Night Vision, which was a superhero themed event with a zip line, stunt jump, and a movie on the lawn. We have a couple coming up, Illumination, which is a glow-in-the-dark mini golf event, as well as Life's a Beach, which is a beach-themed event with some fire breathers and hula dancers. It's really a great time for students to come together, and their students do think of them as signature events on this campus. Our average attendance for these events tends to be over around 500. In 2016, the average signature event was attended by 486 members, and the Slow Burn Bonfire, which is always very popular, had over 750 students in attendance. As I alluded to, the student ambassadors, so a big piece of our signature planned events now is our student ambassadors. They are a student organization we created within the structure, and the reason we did that is because we wanted to get buy-in from the student body, and we wanted students to feel as though that this was a program created with them and for them. So we included them in the planning process. And also it allowed students to plan events without alcohol that hopefully their peers would want to come out to. Currently we have 18 ambassadors that are working to plan our signature events. They've helped plan all the events that I listed before. So Boardwalk Carnival we've done, Lucy's Escape Room, which they created the escape room themselves, Illumination, as I mentioned, the Neon Golf, and Life's a Beach. So we have them do that. We have them help planning events. We also have them advertise and promote events. We consider them to be walking billboards. So they're talking about events. They're also suggesting different items that we could do for giveaways that would be popular among the student body. And they are a great source of understanding what marketing works for students and what's going to attract the most amount of students for an event. We also are going to be having them work with student groups to plan events. And so they're going to be working with them for those student or planned events to basically walk through the form, make sure that the event is solid and that we're planning events, also assisting with the logistics at the actual event. So that's how we use our student ambassadors. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Anastasia, who's going to talk about our marketing.
Thanks, Nick. So we have all of these events now. How do students find out about them? The foundation of our branding and marketing is from the standardized logo that was created by working with University Communications based on the brand guidelines and toolkit. And anybody who receives funding from Lehigh After Dark must put this logo on any advertisement or flyer that they create so that Lehigh After Dark becomes a recognizable and prominent feature on campus. Then from this baseline, we have several methods that we use to advertise Lehigh After Dark. When student groups are approved for funding, they receive a bag of giveaways for their event with our logo on them, as you can see in the middle picture. Special Lehigh After Dark giveaways are also created for signature events to attract students to the events, but also to create walking billboards, like Nick said, for our organization. In addition, we post all of our upcoming events on our organization's website that is linked to Lehigh's campus-wide events calendar. Both Lehigh University's events calendar and Lehigh After Dark's website are a consistent source for students to find weekend events. We also market our events through advertisements, either made by student groups or by myself for some of the signature events. These advertisements are posted on Lehigh After Dark social media pages and printed as large posters to be placed in strategic areas with optimal foot traffic across campus. I'm consistently looking for ways to better our marketing and visibility of LAD for our students, and last year received feedback that students want to plan their weekends earlier. So therefore, I created a standard Monday flyer that I release every Monday on our social media pages, which is shown in the middle, where I list the upcoming events for that weekend so students are able to see all of the events coming up. So because our college student population is mostly Generation Z, we do a lot of our advertising on social media, like I said, such as Facebook and Instagram. And we have also participated in social media takeovers, quote unquote, where we post to the official Lehigh University Instagram or Snapchat stories throughout one of our late night events. And something that is important to our organization is being intentional and data driven. And we also hold this value for our social media usage. We track our engagement and try to optimize when is the best time to post for our student population, as you can see in the two graphs posted on the left. We also repost student photos that display any of our walking billboard giveaways and hashtag Lehigh After Dark on their post. An example of this is in the photograph on the right of the student wearing a LAD beanie. We can see that from this post, for example, we received 55 likes and 2 comments, 509 people saw this photo, and 10 people clicked on our profile from this post. And some of these tracking features are built into Instagram and Facebook, but we also use free websites from the internet for more detailed data and graph images. And by tracking this data, we're able to best serve our student population that's largely driven by social media use. And we're also continuously coming up with unconventional ways to advertise for Lehigh After Dark. One of the most highly effective forms of advertising that we have is through the Health Advancement and Prevention Strategies installment. This is an educational newsletter posted regularly on the inside of bathroom stalls that provides students with health information and also Lehigh After Dark events, as you can see on the right of this slide. We have also utilized unconventional advertising for specific events through something like a floor decal, and are currently looking forward to putting up canvas wraps in Lehigh University's bookstore. One of our newest advertisement endeavors is through the Lehigh University bus system. So Lehigh University is moving toward a more eco-friendly campus, so buses are increasingly being used and encouraged as the preferred mode of transportation across campus. To capitalize on this shift in campus culture, we're posting Lehigh After Dark advertisements, as you can see on the bottom of this slide, on the inside of several university buses as an additional way to get information to students about LAD. So I briefly spoke about the importance of data to our organization, and now Meg's going to talk about that a little bit more.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Meg. I'm going to be talking about the assessment process and how the group has been able to use data to drive decisions and make Lehigh After Dark a better program. I'm going to focus on the cycle of assessment. I'm sure many of you have seen a flow chart like this one, perhaps with slight variations, but overall the assessment cycle consists of setting goals or having certain questions about the program, collecting data, then analyzing and interpreting the data, and then using those insights that you gain to make informed decisions and make the program better. This could lead to either revised goals or new questions, and the cycle continues. So what I wanted to do is really focus on that cycle and go through the program goals, then go through how we've collected data and specific examples of how we've used that data. So here are our program goals. From the beginning of Lehigh After Dark, the goals have really revolved around the awareness of LAD, attendance at LAD events, and the overall experience with LAD. So specifically, we want to increase the knowledge about the number of students who report that they know where to find information about Lehigh After Dark, the frequency of attendance, so we want more students attending more often. Specifically, we want students who drink to attend events, but then also we want our non-drinkers or our abstainers to feel socially supported too, to provide those students with social options. And then finally, we want to increase the number of students who report that Lehigh After Dark has positively impacted their Lehigh experience and contributed to their overall sense of community. Now, our overall goal for each of these has been a 10% annual increase. We felt that it's not a magical number, but we have felt that that's kind of the right combination for us of being ambitious, but also an obtainable goal. So we've had three main ways of collecting data, and those are the LAD catalog, which is a spreadsheet with details about each LAD event, a survey called the Alcohol Use and Social Options Survey, and then the swipe card data that Nick talked about before. And I'm going to go through each of those methods of collecting data, and then instead of going through a ton of specific data points, I'm going to go through some examples of how we've used the data to drive decisions. But that last bullet point we just wanted to mention, it's the attendee survey, which we no longer use. The attendee survey was a survey that went out after every single LAD event to the attendees, and it was essentially a satisfaction survey. And what we were finding was that the administration of the survey was a bit tedious, and we were finding the same information over and over again, which was that those who did attend the events were very satisfied with the events, and they would recommend the events to others. And given all of the work that it took to administer the data after each individual event and the quality of the information, we decided not to use it. And I think that we just wanted to point this out as a way to say, we're constantly looking at our evaluation or assessment tools and saying, are we getting good information? And if we're not, we don't want to needlessly collect data. So the LAD catalog, as I mentioned, is a spreadsheet of information on individual LAD events. It is a Google Doc, and what's nice about it is the entire team has access, can see it, everybody is up to date on the information. So you can see each row is an event. It is color-coded for the type of events that Nick talked about before, whether it's student planned or committee planned or ambassador planned. And the type of information that we collect are the date and the day of the week, the title of the event, whether or not it was approved for funding, the location and the time, if it's a student-sponsored event, who that sponsor was, the projected attendance, the actual attendance. We hid some columns with the funding amounts and some other information, but that's the basic information. And even just that basic information has been really useful to track over time. So I want to go through a couple ways that we've used this catalog. So as simple as it is, just tracking the number of events over time has been helpful. So this bar chart shows the total number of events over the past couple complete academic years. It's a total of events you can see has increased from 75 to 127 over the past couple years. And then the student plan, which is a subset of that, has also about doubled or just over doubled. And even though that's not a specific goal of ours, I think it's an important metric to track, especially as Nick was saying before, we've been focused on student buy-in and having the students involved not only as attendees, but also as planners of the event. So we want students involved in all aspects, and that's something that's been great. Now, these numbers aren't going to continuously increase over time. We have to flatten out sometime, but we have seen an increase over the past several years. Another metric that we've looked at using the catalog is what we call the rate of programming, or the programming rate, which is essentially the percentage of Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights that have at least one program during that night. And what we have noticed, you can see this tracks back to 2012-13. What we noticed several years ago in 2014-15 was that our programming rate, the percentage of Saturday nights that had an event on it, kept going down. And we know that Saturday night is a big drinking night, and so we wanted to provide those loud events on Saturday. And so during the following year, in 2015-16, our programming subcommittee worked with the students who wanted to plan events to encourage them to plan on Saturday nights, specifically Saturday nights that didn't already have events planned on them. And we saw a significant bump up in our programming rate on Saturday. And then in the previous 2 years, the last 2 years there, 2017-18 and this current year, we have the recurring event that Nick went over before, the Wingo, so we have an even greater percentage. And I just wanted to make a note that percentage isn't going to quite reach 100 because I've included all Saturdays, including ones on break where we wouldn't necessarily have events anyway. So it's not necessarily the specific number that matters, but just kind of the overall picture of are we planning events on those nights. So that takes us to our second method of collecting data, which is the Alcohol and Social Options Survey. This survey we've been administering since 2011-12. As Jenna mentioned, that's when we joined the NCHIP Learning Collaborative, and this really started with that collaborative. It is administered 6 times a year, and each undergraduate student receives the survey once. The purpose of 6 times a year is really to look at trends throughout the year. So one of the things that we track is drinking behavior, and that could change throughout the year. And also, even awareness and experience with LADs could change throughout the year too. And so we've kept that survey cycle going. But overall, the survey asks about alcohol use and related harms, interest in alcohol-free late night activities, familiarity and experience with Lehigh After Dark, and some other related engagement information. And then it's also a data source for 5 out of our 6 goals that we went over before, so it's a pretty important data source. So I wanted to go through some ways we've used the data, and one of the ways is to track our goals. As I mentioned, it's 5 out of 6 goals. Now, I'm not going to go through every single goal, but you can see that we've been tracking our goals over time. So this is our first goal that you're seeing, where we want to increase the percentage of students who know where to find information about LAD. And as you can see, that's increased over time from about, just over 50% to we're almost at 70%, which is great. And then that target just continuously will move up as we keep meeting that goal. So what we're going to do is, this is part of the tricky part of the presentation. I'm hoping it goes smoothly. We're going to take you into Tableau, which is a data visualization tool that we've been using. I work in the Office of Institutional Research and Strategic Analytics, and our office has been using Tableau quite a bit, and Lehigh After Dark has been using it just recently. So, what's great about Tableau is it puts the data in the hands of the user, so we can, it's not just putting a piece of paper in front of the group saying, here's what our goals are. We can actually track them and have these interactive dashboards, which I think have been helpful. So one of the ways that we've used the Lehigh After Dark survey data, one example is when our students on the committee came to us and questioned the nights that we were choosing to plan events on. So our mission is to provide social options on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. As you can see from our survey data, this question is, how likely are you to drink to intoxication on the following days? The bars show the percent who said, yes, I'm somewhat or very likely to drink to intoxication on those days. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights are our biggest drinking nights. What we were hearing from some of our students who were involved in Greek life, they said, well, Tuesday's a really big drinking night for Greek students. We know that that's a target population. Maybe we should plan events on Tuesday nights for Greek students. So we can look at our survey data and say, okay, well, what are our Greek students saying? So as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, I put some filters on, and you can actually say, okay, you can deselect and select Greek students to see just what Greek students said. So you can see overall that the Greek students are more likely to drink. And actually on Tuesday nights, almost half of our Greek students said that they were likely to drink to intoxication. However, it's still lower than Thursday, Fridays, and Saturday nights. And then some other students said, well, you know, our athletes really drink a lot on Sunday nights, so maybe we should plan events for athletes on Sunday nights. So you can see that overall 4% were likely to drink to intoxication on a Sunday night. And if you look at our data, 10% of student athletes are. So I think it's important to listen to our students and say, yes, what you're saying makes sense. And actually, we do see Greek students being more likely to drink on Tuesday than unaffiliated students, and athletes more so than non-athletes on Sunday night. However, those Thursday, Fridays, and Saturday nights are still our biggest drinking nights. And so we're going to stick to our original mission, which was to provide our social opportunities on those nights. I think we're going to go back to the slide. Thank you. So I wanted to go over the last method of collecting data, which is our swipe card data. As Nick mentioned, we have students swipe into every event. You can see our fancy swipe card reader and our Tupperware to the picture. And what's nice about the swipe card data is we know exactly who goes, so it's not just the overall number, but who goes and how often. We can look at the demographics of who's attending, who's not attending. So the table on the right is just a table that we've been generating for several years that we've used to look to see, okay, who's attending more or less events. And from this, we've been able to see certain demographics attending more or less, like Greek students are attending less than our unaffiliated students, or our College of Business and Economics students, who tend to be our higher risk drinkers, also attending Lehigh After Dark less. So, and I want to go back into Tableau just one more time if we can, because again, this has been a useful tool to see, to really dive into the data. So you can see that this is an overall dashboard of our attendance. So this is fall 2008, and you can see that in the little pie chart, you know, about half of our total attendance is on Friday nights, about a third is on Saturday nights, and 17% was on a Thursday night. And then we can look at the attendance by different events. So you can see that the overall attendance and the unique students. So that means that, you know, if you look at the grand total of our overall, we had a total of almost 5,000 students come to the events, but that's not necessarily individual students. It was more like a little over 2,000 students going to the events on average a couple times each. And then you can drill down deeper if you want. You can say, okay, well, we know Greek students are, you know, one population that we are particularly interested in. If we want to look at what type of events the Greek students are going to, you can deselect all and then select Greek students. And that's just, so looking at the Greek attendance among the individual type of events, we can see that really very few of our Greek students are going to the recurring events. Most of the attendance is with either the student planned events or the committee planned events. And I think I'm just going to take this opportunity to point out one more thing, which is if you look at the type of events listed on that table on the bottom of the screen, one of the events was the gym. One of the recurring events was that the gym had been open every Friday night. What we have found by looking at the attendance data was that out of all of our type of events, if you collect all, that really had the lowest number of students or the lowest attendance. And again, one of the ways that we're using the data is we're taking a break from the gym programming right now. So we're not. That's why Nick didn't mention it in our recurring events, because we are taking a break due to the low attendance. But again, we're constantly looking at the data and using that data to drive our decisions with the program.
All right, so a little bit about our future efforts and where we plan on going over the course of the next couple of years. First of all, we want to kind of target our key populations. As Meg pointed out, we do have to make some headway with our Greek population as well as our College of Business and athletes. So we're really looking forward to connecting with them and maybe doing some focus groups. Also providing some turnkey programs for them so they could kind of have the event already planned for them and just kind of show up and run the event and have a successful event on their own. Also space restrictions. We are looking at going into a renovation of a lot of our spaces on campus, and that will restrict a lot of our large programming spaces. So that is going to limit where we are going to be able to have our Lehigh After Dark events. So as we go into the future, it's a matter of being creative and where we can hold events, how we're doing that, how we're advertising events, also how we're transporting students. Our campus is spread out through and has 3 separate campuses all over a mountain. So it's a matter of getting students to different spaces and providing those spaces to be successful for the events that we put on. We're also looking to expand our turnkey programs. So turnkey programs are those programs that are easy for students to come in and assist with. They've already been done before, they're successful, they're easy to put on, and we're hopefully going to be expanding it. Currently, we have had Wingo Trivia, our turnkey programs. We have Extreme Board Game Night, karaoke, roller skating. So we're looking to expand those programs and provide them as options for students that are planning events in the future. In regards to funding, we're also looking to move on. Currently, we operate on a $1 or one-time dollars based funding. So we're hoping to make inroads and find some more permanent funding as we find more success with our programming. Also looking quality versus quantity. So last year we had a new vice provost of student affairs come in, and we were tasked with having an event every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And we've really continued with that, but it's not sustainable with the current staff structure. So we're looking at how do we increase quality events. Are we just having events to have events? So really looking at that balance of quality versus quantity. And also having students assist us more with events, and also looking at what the quality student events look like. As we've seen with many student groups, they put on events and they're not great. So we're looking at how we can work with them to develop a process that would allow them to plan solid events on campus. And as I kind of alluded to before, our LAD ambassadors, we're looking to expand their role rather, and having them meet with students and help plan events, going back to that quality piece, and making sure that we have a good promotion for events on campus coming from the student body themselves.
Okay, well, we hope this presentation gave you better insight into how we took small but intentional steps to build a program that created successful social change. We think we've been successful with LAD because we've been strategic about setting our goals with measurable increases each year, collecting and analyzing data regularly, and using this information to guide our decisions. Connecting with our students remains a top priority for us, and it doesn't hurt that we also have a strong and passionate team all working towards the same vision, which is creating a healthy and safe community at Lehigh. It is our hope that you are just as successful with your efforts. And now, Emma, I would like to take the opportunity to open it up for any questions that might exist, and we just want to thank you guys again for spending your time with us today.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Thanks to all of our presenters. I really enjoyed the whole presentation. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience. Even the part, especially something that stuck out to me, was just the intentionality behind everything, and being able to be intentional with the kind of the social media engagement and just things like that. Some of those things are pretty accessible to us. Maybe it's on the platforms like you talked about and stuff like that, and really being intentional. So that was really nice. We don't have any questions at this time. However, we can definitely take a few minutes to kind of get a few questions. Well, we actually did have one now, so I will read it out loud for our presenters, and then they can kind of decide who would like to answer them. The first question is, what is your current funding source?
So I'll take that one. This is Jenna. Our current funding source, we are currently on one-time dollars that we receive from the Vice Provost. We have to ask for this every year. So we kind of cross our fingers and, you know, say a little prayer every beginning of the semester. But I think you can see from our presentation that we have a pretty robust and well-oiled machine going. So we feel fairly confident that we're going to be getting our funding source from the VP. And not to mention, I mean, we're all in on this. Our president is very into the health and safety of our students. You'll see him out running everywhere. Same with our provost and our vice provost. They all have complete buy-in, so that actually helps a great deal as well. I hope I answered your question. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got a few more coming in, so I'll read those out loud. But everyone else, feel free to kind of keep sharing. Someone asked that they may have missed this. What were your 6 goals?
Oh yeah, sure. I'll go back to that slide so that you could take a look. This is kind of like a truncated version of our goals. It's actually a little bit longer the way that we state them, but these are essentially our 6 goals. It looks like 5, but the 5th one is kind of like an A and B, and that's how we look at it.
Perfect. Next, we have someone curious about drinking adjacent to the programs. So like pre-gaming before or students going to parties after. Do you have any data on this or any experiences with stuff related to this?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thanks for asking it. We like to say with LAD that, you know, we know that students here are adults. We're not going to say you can't drink. Those are decisions that you choose to make. If students decide to pregame, which we of course hope they don't, but if they decide to pregame and come to a LAD event, at least we know that every LAD event, one of the requirements is that there's food and water or some kind of drink, non-alcoholic obviously, at our event. So at least they're using a protective strategy while they're at our LAD event and getting some pretzels or some burgers or whatever the food might be and some water in them. Even if they choose to go out from our LAD event too, it's okay, but we at least know that they're safe in that one space for that period of time should they choose to drink when they're going to be going out at night. So yes, there has been events where we know that students have been drinking, that we can smell alcohol in their breath. We always inform LUPD of every event that's going on, so they'll kind of swing by, they'll pop their head in, pop their head out. But if a student is at the event, we know that for that moment in time, they are in a safe place and they're getting something in their system too. Feel free to jump in, guys.
And I was going to chime in as well that one of our survey questions is if you hadn't attended the last Lehigh After Dark that you attended, would you have likely been drinking otherwise? And usually it's about 40% of the people who, of the LAD attendees said that yes, I would have been drinking otherwise. So we feel pretty good about, you know, the number of students we're affecting who are we're not drinking during that time period that maybe they would have otherwise been drinking.
Awesome, thank you. We do have another question, if you guys are ready for it. It is, do you have any data showing the correlation between your programming and the number of AOD-related conduct violations?
That's a really great question.
We do not. We have looked at it in the past, but what we've found with specifically looking at, I know we've looked at hospital transports before, but I think what happens is there's so few in a given weekend that it's really hard to get any kind of significant correlation there. So we do not have, you know, any correlation there.
Okay, thank you. We still have a few minutes if anyone else has any questions they would like to submit. In the meantime, I'll take this time to once again thank the presenters. Thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences. And thank you for all the attendees as well. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us. If you could please keep an eye out for an email that you guys will be receiving about an hour after the webinar ends. It will have an evaluation in there for the webinar. And if you could follow the link and fill out that evaluation, that would really help us out for planning future events.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so we'll take maybe another minute or so just to see if anyone has anything that came to mind. And then after that, we'll just complete the session. All right, well, thank you again to our presenters and to the attendees, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their day.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.